Are you sure it's safe to just go swimming in the middle of the ocean? Nish asked, looking into the water and feeling a faint flush of panic over her. She could not see past the waves, and having no knowledge of what was down there was unnerving. I've never had any problems before, Puertala replied, checking the ladder, and making sure it was firmly attached to the boat. Pista did not share her mother's concerns, and was already equipped with her life jacket and a ring floaty. The captain tied the floaty to the boat, as Pista was just as inept at swimming as her mother, and it was best if the girl did not float away with the current. Never been swimming before? Pista trotted excitedly, bouncing up and down. How do you people wash if you don't like getting wet? Asked Warutteri, doing some stretching before she took the plunge. Sand and salt baths, Nish replied, once again peering over the edge before immediately looking away. Gabriel was standing behind them, when he suddenly got the urge to be spontaneous, rare indeed for him. Giving himself a good stretch, Gabriel ran to the side deck and leapt into the ocean, shouting, "Cannonball!" Pista scored in delight, while Warutteri, Nish, and Puertala were astonished that someone so small could make a splash that big. Errol gazed out at where Gabriel had made contact with the water. He was under the water for just long enough that Errol started to grow concerned when he popped up a few meters to the right. Gabriel looked at Errol, noticed her body language, and said, "What?" "Nothing, it's just, I didn't know you had it in you. I'm impressed," Errol replied, raising her eyelids and lifting her tail. "Me next," Pista squealed, trying to copy Gabriel, but Nish grabbed hold of her arms and insisted that she take the ladder. Pista groaned, but knew better than to argue. Gabriel swam towards the ladder to meet her. "Are you sure you're still breathing that thing?" asked Warutteri, as she took the plunge. "Yeah, it was designed for torrential downpours, not necessarily for salt water. But as long as I don't spend all day in the ocean, it should be fine," Gabriel explained, holding out his hand. Pista took it and slowly slid into the sea. She froze briefly, unsure what to do. This was only the second time she'd been in water deeper than her heels. Kicking her legs and feeling the ocean's resistance, she started the trill and splashed happily. "Look, Mummy, I'm swimming," Pista cried, splashing all the more vigorously. "Very good, Pista," Nish replied. It did look fun, and she could not deny a small part of her was curious, but it was overwhelmed by the terror. Errol joined them in the water, and as she slipped into the blue, Gabriel said, "No petting." "What did you take us for?" asked Errol. "Horny young adults," deadpanned Gabriel. "He's not wrong," Warutteri told Errol. Turning away from them, he asked Pista, "Want to go for a ride around the boat?" "Yeah," Pista cried, and Gabriel began pushing her. "Was the water why you were so excited to come to the beach?" Gabriel asked, while Nish watched the whole thing from the boat. Yeah," Pista replied. Gabriel had the sneaking suspicion that she had no real reason for her excitement, other than it was new. Kids rarely knew the reasons for their feelings. Just like adults, Gabriel mused. After making a complete orbit of the sail ship, Gabriel looked up at Nish and asked, "Care to join us?" Nish did not respond. She just repeated her glance into the big blue, and immediately looked away. "Come on, Mummy," Pista called, splashing with all four arms. Nish did not budge, so Gabriel suggested, "You can always sit down on the swim platform and dip your legs." That sounded better. Keeping most of her body dry was better and made the whole prospect tolerable. Nish took a few breaths and very slowly descended the ladder. She could do this. She wanted to do this. That way, Nish could say she had been in the ocean, and all her friends and colleagues would be jealous and impressed. She would probably leave out the part that her 14-year-old daughter had done it before her, without a twinge of fear. Once she was halfway down the ladder, Nish froze. All she could think about was how helpless she would be in the water. Evolution had driven an almost instinctive fear of open water. No Tofanda was born with it, but all it took for a phobia to develop was one moderately bad experience, and you never want to go near the ocean, a lake or river again. Nish did not know how Pista had escaped the fear once she had fallen into the Ventura enclosure. "You don't have to if you don't want to," Gabriel reminded her. "No, I want to," Nish replied, barely above a whisper. Gabriel made a decision, and hauled himself onto the stern and held out his hand. After a brief moment of hesitation, Nish took it, and she realized that, if she did fall in, there was someone who could and would help her. While it did not diminish her fear, it did make it more manageable, and Nish finally reached the bottom and sat down, letting her legs dangle over the swim platform. "There, not so bad, is it?" Gabriel said, returning to the water. Feeling the warm water lap against her zygodactyl toes, Nish found that deep water was not all bad. She still wasn't going to look at it or swim in it, though. Not a chance. Gabriel saw Pissa's safety lamp become taut, and he pulled her back to the boat. Rather than be disappointed, she trilled and said, "Again!" Thus began Pissa's new favourite game. Gabriel would push her away, and once she reached the maximum extent of the rope, Gabriel would pull her back as hard as he could. Piotala watched it all from the helm, ensuring his passengers did not do anything stupid. It was not a significant concern, but you could never be too cautious. Checking the time, they realised that it was time to lock their position with the Coast Guard. It was a simple safety procedure, but vital if anything should go wrong. Once they were done, Piotala noticed a dozen objects steadily approaching the boat on the sonar. Checking their laptop, he logged onto Minograd's animal tracker. This worldwide system allowed the tourism industry to either find the animals or steer clear of them in the case of more sensitive species. Once they realised what was on the way, Piotala let out a whinny. They removed a bucket from the cupboard they kept near the steering wheel. With their tool firmly in hand, they opened the deck and said, "We've got Redgal on the way.